Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have another great episode of Redefining Recruitment, where we're going to talk about AI. So let's introduce our panel. First, we have our president of Twice as Nice Recruiting. That's Patrick Cahill. Patrick, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great.
And we have Caralie Coleman, our VP of Search at Twice as Nice Recruiting. Caralie, how's it going?
Hello, doing awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, so unless you've been under a rock, you know that AI is impacting businesses across the board and jobs of all kinds. And there are a ton of AI tools that you can use for various businesses and jobs. It can help propel your productivity, and it's kind of another tool in your toolbox. And the same is true when it comes to recruiting. Now, a lot of these AI tools are kind of just like chatbots, but there's a lot of really fascinating ways that you can use this when it comes to your recruiting and hiring process. With this technology, you can recruit, interview, and hire better, and we want to tell you how to do that. So first, let's get to know each other. We are Twice as Nice Recruiting, and we do one thing, and that's permanent placement. We build every single search from scratch. We have a 9.9% placement fee, and we guarantee your placements for 18 months. We've worked with more than 1,800 clients to fill roles across the board, and today we're redefining recruitment. Okay, so let's dive into what AI is. And Patrick, can you kind of frame the AI landscape? Tell us about what it is. Paint this AI picture for us.
So I'll frame it for those that are not really familiar with utilizing tools, because we're not claiming to be full-blown experts. We've just been using it a bunch to complement the team and how we're already doing recruiting. And so we use ChatGPT when, as a company, we're looking to apply AI to some of our process. But there's Claude, Copilot, Bard. There are a lot, and they're relatively easy to start playing with. So if you haven't played with one, just go to one of those, sign up for free, and start asking questions. It can do all kinds of fun things. So maybe you don't have a role that you need to start filling right now, but I've used AI to help me create logos for pretend businesses that I'm just hanging out with friends talking about, working on translation of handwritten menus at restaurants, or my daughter's favorite use of it is to create customized coloring book pages. It's really good at that. So you can definitely have fun with it. And again, it's free. But an important note, if you're new to AI, you also wouldn't have learned this valuable lesson, which is you got to trust but verify. Any date, number, name, specific item that's important, you'll want to make sure it's true. And because you'll find really quickly if there's a weird number and you ask, hey, where'd you get that number? Or how about that historical date? Or why did that resume say that there? It will often say, oh, I'm sorry, I made that up. And that can be a real challenge if you're leaning on it without knowing that piece of information. But in general, we use it as just a tool to complement the overall work we're doing. We have not found an instance where it's actually acceptable to replace a process because of that aspect where you need to verify what it's actually producing.
Mm-hmm. I think those are really good points that, use it, but verify it. It's a great launching pad. It's a fantastic start, and it can really be powerful in a lot of ways, but it's not replacing anyone, and it's not replacing anyone yet. So Caralie, I'm curious, how can an employer or HR use AI to hire folks? I'm assuming that they're not making coloring books.
I mean, if you really wanted to, I'm sure you could make some fun coloring books that are related to what you do. But when it comes to hiring and using AI to help you, there's a number of different ways you can use it. I think first off, at the very basic level, AI can help you to get started in the process if you don't know where to start. So it can help talk you through what you don't know that you don't know. It can also help you with job descriptions. So if you need some help writing a job description, or maybe you have your job description almost completed and you want a second set of eyes to look at it and give you some tips, it can definitely help to elevate what you already have. Beyond the job description, it can also help with an interview plan. So if you're starting with nothing, it can really give you an idea on how many interviews to have, what types of interviews to have, types of questions to ask. If you can talk to it about what your desired outcome is from the interview, it can help coach you around how to get there.
Again, it's this really powerful tool to have in your toolbox to kind of get you started, get the ball rolling, maybe get those creative juices flowing, and figure out what you need to do. So I think it'd be really helpful to see this in practice. And I know, Caralie, you're really great at going more into depth on a lot of these topics. So I think you're going to share your screen and kind of walk us through.
Awesome. So hopefully you can see my screen now. I'm sharing just the basic view of ChatGPT. And so I figured we could dive in a few ways. So first off, if we were diving into ChatGPT and we knew, hey, we want to make a hire, but we're not sure where to start. If we were looking for help in hiring a controller, and we're a manufacturing company, and we have 50 employees, and maybe this is our first time hiring a controller, and we do have a small department. Let's see what we can do with ChatGPT. So I'm just going to tell it what I want. So I'd like some help to create a job description for a role that I'm hiring for. And I prepared a few notes, but I have not tested this out in ChatGPT. So we'll see what it says today. But I'm going to say, I'm looking to hire a controller for a manufacturing company with 50 employees. It's the first time hiring a controller. And in our finance or accounting department, we have the following individuals that they would manage. So let's just see what ChatGPT says.
While it's loading, I think it's an important tip or trick to point out is that you were very specific. It has 50 employees. These are the roles that it's overlooking. Like you really kind of have to spoon feed these AI tools, it seems, as much information as you can kind of give it while not constraining it too much.
Yeah, and it's definitely helpful to give it some information and say, I didn't even know where to start. I could say, hey, I want help creating this job description. What do you need from me? So there's different ways you can go about it, but you'll see here, it's given us a brief, section talking about our company, about the overview of the position. And then I think the most helpful part is it's given us some key responsibilities and qualifications. And so obviously it's making up these responsibilities and qualifications based on what it's seen in, other controller roles. But this is a time when you can read through it and see, are these responsibilities in line with what we're looking for this individual to do? Are the qualifications in line with what we feel someone would need to bring to the table? And then it also gave you a section talking about what you would offer, because it is important to sell to the candidate what it is that you can offer to them in this position.
I just think it's a great opportunity to point out that this ChatGPT made some bold assumptions that could have serious implications to candidates' expectations or who you might be getting. So it's an example. Not only did it create a job description for what a standard controller, but it started making assumptions of how you'd compensate that controller, what you want to see. And so you really want to make sure this actually represents your intent. I mean, but it's amazing to get you so far ahead of starting with nothing. But I always find it fascinating what it decides it can just make in terms of assumptions on what you're intending to do.
Yeah, and it's also important to see, it's talking about opportunity to make a significant impact in a growing company. I never said it was a growing company. So you just want to make sure that what it's creating is correct. But you could even just bare bones say, what are typical responsibilities for a controller? And so if we ask what the typical responsibilities are, this might be a section where you're like, oh, yes, these are the items that I want this individual to be focused on. Or, hey, I want them focused a little bit more on the strategy aspect than the tax and regulatory filing piece. So there's different ways you can go about it. And then one thing to note too is as you're working on the qualifications, you might want to start thinking through what's important for you. So here it's suggesting maybe a master's degree or CPA is preferred. But maybe to me that ERP background someone brings to the table, because maybe we're looking to switch programs, is more important. You can have it adjust. I'm going to say we aren't growing fast. I'm going to say ERP experience is important. I don't care about a CPA. And let's see, it did talk about strong leadership, so that's good. But maybe we want to say how many years of experience I think a candidate should bring to the table to see what it tells us. So again, you can just have this back and forth. It's adjusted the job description, which is cool, but it also is giving us some insight. They're suggesting 8 to 10 years of progressive accounting and finance experience. Now, again, you need to figure out what actually makes sense for what it is that you're looking for. But just trying to show an example of how you can get it to adjust the job description. You'll see that it no longer talks about it being a growing company, and it added in the years of experience. It took out the master's degree or the CPA, and then it's mentioned that the ERP experience is required. So it definitely can listen to your feedback if you're pointed with that feedback, and can support you if you ask questions. So I picked a random job. So I'm just going to load it quickly so that I can grab the job description. So I went online, I looked at a big company, Amazon, they're huge. Just wanted to pick one of their job descriptions. So they are hiring for a sales compensation analyst, Amazon Web Services. Now, I believe I should be able to put this link into ChatGPT so we can play around with that. But what I wanted to do here is if we're looking for feedback on a job description, and so you see this job description that I'm scrolling past, I'm looking for ChatGPT to help me make it stronger. And so I'm going to ask it, what are some adjustments you would make to the job description to make it more compelling? And so again, with your pointed questions, you could ask it to suggest adjustments to your responsibilities or to your requirements, or to or to make it more succinct, to shorten it, or to make it more exciting, whatever it is that you're looking for help with. And let's see. So you'll see that it was able to read the link. The first time it had a little bit of an issue, but you just said regenerate and then it worked. And so they're talking, what I really like here is they're pulling out the original and they're giving you the revised version of a bunch of different areas of the job description. Now, some things I like to do with ChatGPT sometimes would be to maybe insert a paragraph where I'm describing the job and say, could you make this tighter? Could you make this more, maybe if you want it more corporate, maybe you want it more formal, maybe you want it more relaxed. And it can definitely help and provide those adjustments, but it's also, you can ask it why. And so sometimes that's helpful to learn. So on the role's impact, you'll be responsible for supporting the design, implementation, and administration of sales compensation programs. And this is talking play a pivotal role in shaping and executing. So I might say, why did you suggest the specific for number one? And sometimes it will teach you why. So it's clarifying the impact, enhancing the candidate appeal, and aligning with the brand. And so sometimes maybe you might not understand the suggestions it's making or why it's telling you to do something, and you can always ask and try to learn from what it's telling you to do. But perhaps what if we ask it, can you put the job description into a more concise format? We'll see what it pops out. And I'm asking that because sometimes we find that the shorter the job description, the more attention grabbing it is for candidates because they have a lot going on. So you'll see it very much shortened this job description, but it put it into a typical format where you have the job, you have the location. It looks like it wasn't able to pull the location, but it has pulled out some key responsibilities and qualifications. So if you ever have maybe your team put together a 7-page job description and you're thinking, that's way too long, let's see what we can do. ChatGPT can help you to shorten it.
So this is all super interesting for the job description and kind of getting the ball rolling. I think for a lot of employers and HR personnel, that is a huge part of the interview and hiring process, just getting that started. But then there's this whole other ball game, which is interviewing and implementing an interviewing plan and going through the hiring process. How can you use ChatGPT or other AI tools to kind of help plan that and use it through the interview process?
Great question. And so let's go back to the made up controller role that we're working on. And so say we have no idea where to start. I'm going to tell it to go back to the controller role. I'm going to say that we need some help coming up with what our interview plan looks like. And I'm going to ask for it to show me potentially a suggested format. I'm going to ask about number of interviews, types of interviews, and who to involve. And it doesn't really care about typos, but I'm fixing them as much as I can. But being as specific as you can really helps to pinpoint the feedback or insight it will give you, because if it can be very broad. And so that's where just with time I've learned, ask for exactly what it is that you're looking for. And if you get an answer that's not super helpful, just try again. It won't get mad. And so you'll see that it's talking about an initial screening, phone or video. It's telling you how long, who might conduct it, what the purpose is. Again, it's really important to know what is the goal of your interview at each step of the process. So it's letting you know kind of key points to cover. Then it's going into the technical interview, leadership interview, executive interview. This is a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm going to maybe ask them, like, does this seem like a lot of interviews? And again, just keep in mind that this is not a human. This is a robot. It's AI. And so we don't always want to follow exactly what it tells us to do. So it is now giving a streamlined interview plan, which has, it looks like, 3 interviews. So it was helpful to see, hey, if that seemed like a lot, what's a faster way of getting through this? Now that we have an interview plan, what are we supposed to ask the candidate? And so maybe if we were looking at this technical and leadership interview, because initial screening, maybe we don't need as much help with that. I'm going to ask for the top 10 questions to ask. And the thing that's really cool with AI is you can ask it, maybe you want some more guidance around how to run a behavioral interview or how to get a better feeling for someone's insert XYZ skill. You can work with AI to see if it can suggest any questions that you may want to ask. And what I like here is it gave us some questions that we can ask, and then it told us the purpose of the question. So it's maybe telling us what we're looking for based on the questions that we're asking. And again, just because AI told you, hey, these are good questions, it doesn't mean that you have to use them, but it can just be a way that you're thinking through baking out your interview process.
I think you hit upon what was just going through my mind, which is, making sure that it doesn't somehow get misinterpreted, that these are now the definite ways I need to proceed.
Mhm.
Because I think, especially if you're a new user to AI, it has this consistent level of confidence and it's written in such a persuasive format that it just feels like it has to be correct. But at the end of the day, this tool does have limited perspective. It doesn't understand necessarily the full context of what you're going to be doing. And so you want to make sure you're just understanding that it's like another computer, not an actual expert that's helping you complete this job. It's a tool.
Mhm.
It's not actually the job itself. I kind of think of it as at least where self-driving cars are today. You have to understand its limitations. It's great for a specific speed in a specific environment, but you might not want to be driving through Boston with a self-driving car at this stage. The technology is changing quite a bit, and also, adjustments should be made, I think, as you deal with actual individuals and realize, hey, there's a person on the other end of this, and I think I can adjust based on what I'm hearing to better reflect how to uncover that individual's potential, not follow through with this plan that ChatGPT created for me. So that's just kind of what comes to mind. But this is, again, so useful. And if it's helpful at all, just to build some context, at Twice as Nice, we built an AI committee to try to understand how can we best use AI here. And we had such grand ambitions on what we thought it could potentially do. But what a cross-functional group of volunteers found was that we got so much reward with so little effort if we just understood that its part in the process was helping us overcome inertia. But when we started trying to get perfection out of AI, it was just such a waste of effort. And we were working harder to get AI to work for us in that context than if we just did it ourselves. And so it's just, I always want to think about it as how does it help me get started, overcome some hurdle or block that I'm dealing with, but appreciate its contribution that way, but not over depend on it. And I think it's been really helping us with that perspective.
I think those are all really great points, Patrick, that there are limitations to this tool. Again, it's the tool, it's not the job. I really like what you said there. I'm curious if you have any other insights on some of the limitations that AI has when it comes to using it specifically for recruiting and hiring candidates. It is this self-driving car that's not fully self-driving yet. What are limitations that you might see?
I mean, I think beyond Caralie did such an amazing job with a really fast crash course on how it can help on the various steps on building the description, coming up with the interview plan, coming up with the actual questions. But at the end of the day, recruiting is about finding people, not just the structure in place. And so you want to make sure that you understand you still need to go find these people to work this process through. And so having the right marketing plan, understanding how to make sure your job is appealing, which I think we do have a video a little bit about that and what your metrics are telling you about how your job is performing and what you might want to change about it. And then also just how to actually evaluate those individuals and make sure that they're going to be a contributor to your organization the way your organization needs. But so I think the biggest limitation is the most important part, which is finding those individuals and making sure they're excited about this opportunity.
All really fantastic tips, insights, a fantastic lesson, Caralie. We really appreciate you walking us through that. I think it'll be so interesting to see how folks can take this and then apply it with their roles, with their recruitment strategies. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Redefining Recruitment.